Hi, Blake. You've now rushed for over 100 yards in back-to-back games. What's allowed you to find that kind of rhythm as a runner at this point in the season?
I think we've been blocking really well on all fronts, whether that be the offensive line. They've played really well so far this season, and then perimeter blocking. I think Coach Okitis, Coach Cronic, Coach Jasper, Coach Cole all do a great job about preaching, perimeter blocking. Um, and I think that those guys have really embraced that this year. And so just following them has really allowed me just to, really allowed everybody who has the ball to get some space this season so far. So it's been good.
How much would you say this offense has grown already through the first four games of the season compared to even all the adjustments that this offense underwent through the offseason going into the second year of Coach Cronic's tenure here?
Yeah, I think we're really finding out what our strengths are, as a team, as a system, right? What we can do the best. So stuff that was going to be big, maybe the first week we ever installed this offense, maybe it's faded away and we found new foundation points, right? What we want to build off of. And so I think it's an ever-changing, ever-evolving system, right? Depending on what our personnel is as well. And I think we've got a scheme and a system that fits our personnel really well right now.
And you mentioned the importance and the overall performance of the offensive line. What excites you most about that offensive line and what it's doing right now? Is it just the blocking, or is there even something else that goes beyond that?
I think the excitement comes with the fact of knowing that they're not a finished product, right? They're very young, almost at all points. Only one senior on that line, Ben Purvis, and he's just doing a great job leading them, I think. And so, knowing that they really only have the ability to keep improving and getting better, right, is the biggest thing. So I think that knowing that there is that much still more room for improvement and growth and experience is exciting to me.
Thanks, Blake.
Thank you.
Scott Wyckoff.
Blake, how fired up are you and especially your classmates on the team to be able to have Air Force at home your senior year?
I think it's great. Really fired up for the opportunity and the really opportunity to play and hopefully in front of a lot of fans. The game's already sold out this week, and I've known for a while that a lot of my family members and friends are have been trying to come to this game in Annapolis. So I think that's really the most exciting part is the excitement that's sort of surrounding this football team and in this game, right? No matter what the record is on either side, it's going to be a good, hard-fought game, and so I think. It's just cool that we can do that in Annapolis for the Navy fans.
What was your biggest takeaway from playing Air Force last season that's helping you through practice and get ready for what to expect Saturday?
My biggest takeaway last year, and it's not helping me through practice, is that the air is a lot thinner there in Colorado Springs. So that is true. Um, I think it's just understanding the sort of intensity. I think that was sort of, you can't really understand it until you play in that game. And I never really played in it yet until Air Force. And so, um, really just understanding that the intensity that everyone's going to play with, right? Whether it be the front four or the linebackers, it doesn't matter. And so, being able to match that at the beginning of the game is going to be big.
And what's it like playing against a team defensively that has such knowledge of the type of offense and the different keys that you're looking for?
Yeah, it just really all boils down to execution then, right? If the other team knows what you're doing, you still have to be able to execute. And I think that's our message the entire season is just go out and execute our stuff and we believe the only team that can stop us is ourselves. So just trying to limit those mistakes and you just go out and execute and play good football.
Thanks a lot, Blake.
Thank you, Scott.
For those of for those of you who are just joining us, we're doing three questions each to start. Tim Nolan.
Blake, on Saturday after the game, you made sure to tell everybody that it was the elevator attendant's birthday. A couple pressers ago against UAB, you made sure to shout out Luke for catching his first touchdown. Why do you feel so compelled to give some shout outs to people who might not always get the spotlight?
People hear enough from me. They don't need to hear much more about what I think about our offense, all these different things. I think it's a lot cooler to, shout out those other people. I know how I would have felt, right, when I was a young guy for an upperclassman to shout me out or whether it might be when I was a young kid just getting a college football player to pay attention to me when I was super young. So just those little things. Those are more fun for me than, talking always about the X's and O's and those sort of things. So trying to always, find the the fun and sort of the repetitiveness of post game interviews for sure.
Awesome. Because so now I'm going to ask you two X's and O's questions. Blake, first, how has the passing game expanded throughout the course of this year from your estimation?
I think I think the biggest just growth has been really getting everybody involved. And it was one of our goals this offseason is having growth at the tight end and wide receiver position. Obviously, you look back at last year, we had a significant amount of passing yards compared to past seasons, but a lot of those were to Eli or to Chapman or to Alex. At running back. And so, we didn't target our receivers a lot or our tight ends. And so I think getting those guys in the mix this year, getting them targets, getting them the ball has really opened up our offense and made us more multidimensional in that sense and more people to cover. So I think that's sort of the biggest growth we've seen there.
And then against Rice, a lot of pre-snap motion, especially in the offensive line. I liked on that Philly that Hutch scored on. It seemed like the entire line moved an entire spot over. How many of those were you checking at the line, and how many of those were predetermined?
Um, a lot of those are just predetermined. Just trying to you know, change our alignment quickly. So, and then get into a play just makes it difficult at points. And so, really great execution, I think, by the offensive line there of getting moved quickly and getting down and getting Luke is one of his first rushing touchdowns. So,
Thanks, Blake.
thank you.
I appreciated Blake shouting out my Cincinnati Reds last night as well.
Yeah.
Bill Wagner.
Hey, Blake. So this past game against Rice was the first time you all didn't have the output on the scoreboard in relation to the yardage that you piled up. I mean, clearly you probably could have scored 35 points or more in that game. Can you talk about that? What does the film study showed you? I mean, is it all based on penalties, short circuiting drives, or are there other things?
Yeah, I mean, you knew that this game was never going to be a 50-point game or in that atmosphere. I mean, possibility maybe, but that's very low with two teams that want to take care of the ball, right? Both teams trying to time a possession game. And so definitely 35 was definitely attainable. I think you look back and some of the things that stood out was obviously the penalties, the fourth down that we didn't execute very well. Um, and then third and long, there's a third and long overthrown pass by me. So like those three that sort of stalled the drives, those three causes, I think is sort of what limited us, right? And then you'll see, like I said, those two plays, the fourth down and the third down, keep the drive going in their side of the field. You might see a field goal, maybe you see another touchdown or two. So then you sort of see that number that would be more reflective of how the offense was going. But it is what it is, and we take those lumps and we learn from them and just keep getting better.
So Coach Newberry had talked in his post-game presser and again yesterday when he spoke to the media about reaching the standard that has yet to see this team put it all together and hit the standard that he sets, which is a high bar, we know. But can you talk about that from an offensive standpoint? Do you agree with him?
Yeah, I think we talk about it a lot as a team, but there's some games you win and maybe you didn't feel like you executed your best, and there's still a little sour taste in your mouth because it's a victory, but you can put a better result on the field. And then the other way around, maybe you could lose a game, but if you execute your butt off and they just got the better of you in the end, then maybe you can be like, okay, I'm satisfied in the direction this team's going, the standard that we have. And so I think that's sort of what he's saying is even though we've won 4 games, 4-0. There's still expectation here that we know we can do better, and we have the talent and the personnel and the ability to do more. And so, it's just about putting that all together in the end. And that's not having the dumb little execution errors that we've had or the pre-snap penalties as well.
And so, can you talk about the desire the entire team has to put it all together this week for this game in particular?
Yeah, I think that's what this game's all about, right? Is it's the reason it's not the first game because you're not a finished product by the first game, but middle of the season you want to try and get to your top form of how you're going to be, and like I said before, it just all comes down to execution. So there's definitely a desire, a willingness, a want to of trying to put it all together and limit those little mistakes that have caused us some problems the past weeks.
David Teal, Daily Press, Virginia.
Blake, along those lines, after a season when you went 10-3 and won the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, you won a bowl, you're off to a 4-0 start, but maybe not playing your best. What in your mind and your teammates' mind is this squad's ceiling? How much higher can you go?
Yeah, I think we have a very high expectation for our ceiling. And there's different things. Obviously, we just talk about week to week games. It's tough to try and project things at the end of the season, what you want to do without taking care of your business week to week. And so I think that's the reason. I think it's sort of the turnover and the change in our team and where we're heading. I think a few years ago, we'd be really excited with, where we're at right now you know, and satisfied maybe is a good term, but I don't think that this team is satisfied with just being 4-0, just with our record. I think, we're chasing more than that. Chase perfection. You might, catch some excellence. So that's sort of what we're trying to do. And I think that's just a testament to sort of the development of our team over the past few years.
At the Naval Academy, what is the higher priority, the Commander-in-Chief's trophy or a conference championship?
That's a good question, right? I know what one service academy will probably say, and I know what the other one will probably say, but the truth for us is it always starts with the Commander in Chiefs. That's always our first goal, no matter what in the season. You go get to spend some time with the president too, so that's pretty cool. But I just think that that's since I've been here my freshman year, that's always been what has been preached and is always number one on our set of goals each season. And so I think a lot of fans would agree with that as well.
Thank you.
Heather Dinnick, ESPN.
Hey Blake, I wanted to ask you about singing the alma mater, which is a little bit of a random question, I understand. But what does that mean to you in games like this?
I think these games, especially the academy games, it means a little bit more. And I've talked about it after the Army game and stuff, but singing second in these games, like it physic or singing first, I guess I'll restart. Singing first, it like physically hurts a little bit. Like just that your fans aren't singing with as much enthusiasm. You're not singing, with that same sort of, loudness and excitement as you would if you were singing second. And so it's sort of, as a player, an embarrassment. Sometimes it feels like to sing first. And on the flip side, right, singing second, it just you can feel the joy and the excitement. Like after the Army Navy game last year, I know it's like the loudest I've ever heard our alma mater sang. So it's just one of those things where I think it sort of brings everybody together and sort of encapsulates the game. And I know that at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal, right? Is sing second. So it's a pretty great feeling if you can get to do that.
When you were a plebe, how specifically did you learn it? Like what were the instructions to you when you got to school? You got to learn the words to this. And how
Yeah.
did you do it?
So plebe summer obviously is the big one of, you get I don't know if you know the reef points, your book full of all these little sayings, facts, poems, whatever it may be. And so there's a couple different ones and stuff. And so one of them obviously is blue and gold, the alma mater, and they quiz you on that from like I don't even know, maybe like the fifth day of plebe summer. When you get there on, you have to make sure you know it to memory, and then you sing it more and more, and it just becomes a staple of everything you do. It usually during plebe summer you'd end every day by singing the alma mater. So you'd be up from 5:30 a.m. up until 10, and then 10 o'clock hits, you sing alma mater and you go to sleep. And so it's sort of just instilled with you, from day one at the Naval Academy. That sort of commits, everybody from alumni to current midshipmen, brings everybody together.
And the last thing on it, is there a particular line in there that's meaningful to you or that stands out to you?
Yeah, I gotta sort of sing it in my head for a second.
Feel free to sing it out loud for us.
No, I'm not that good of a singer. My roommates are in the Glee Club. They'd be better. So, um, I think the just for sailors brave in battle fair since fighting days of old. Um, just talks about, in the end, who has better right to wear the navy blue and gold. I just think that's the best part, right? Is there's sort of it talks about the past is where we've came from and where we're at and how that's sort of shaped who we are now. And, you know, it's sort of the Jim Harbaugh sort of thing, but who's got it better than us sort of there at the end, right? Who's better right to wear the navy blue and gold than us? So I think that's sort of, I think I take the most pride in.
Thank you.
Brett Brigham, Colorado Springs Gazette.
Yeah, I've covered this team for a long time, and this is maybe the best quarterback matchup I've seen for Air Force and Navy, just in terms of the way you guys are playing coming into this. I guess from your perspective, what makes the ideal service academy quarterback?
I think first and foremost, you got to be a great decision maker. With the triple option or, wing T or whatever you're running in the passing game, I think you have to be elite at making decisions because possessions are valuable, especially in this game. And you can't be the one to turn the ball over. And you got to make sure the ball is getting to the right areas and the right spots. And so I think first and foremost, you gotta be a good decision maker. And then second, what really sets the team apart in this game is really whose quarterback can be a playmaker. You look back in the past, quarterbacks that come to mind, Zach Larrier, Keenan Reynolds, Malcolm Perry, all those guys were playmakers, right? And they were able to do things with the ball in their hands. And it just puts more stress on the defense. And if you can't run the ball at quarterback, if you can't make plays and put threat on the defense, then they're sort of not worried about accounting for you as much and can take away other parts of your offense and play quicker on the back end. And so you have to be a threat and you have to make good decisions at quarterback if you want to definitely be effective and see the success that you see service academies have in this game.
And how much of that running is just a matter of feel, knowing when to pitch it, when to hold it, but also just knowing how to find those gaps and slip into them?
It's all an art, right? It's not as much a science, right? No one's going to run the same defense against us, or it's not going to look the same, right? You can tell my mom how to run the triple option on paper, right? But it's just not what she's done for years, and she's been a part of it for a while. She could probably run it, but it's a feel thing, and it's what we do here is you got to get reps and reps and reps and reps at it because you got to be able to understand, especially personal space, right? There's a lot of teams we play where guys, their wingspan, can stretch from wall to wall in here. And you got to be able to pitch the ball around those guys and not let them have it, knock it down and those different types of things. So it's just all about feel and flow and just being comfortable with it.
And it's probably a bizarre question given this rivalry, but is there any danger of being overconfident just based on what happened last year in Colorado Springs? And when you watch film of what Air Force has been giving up defensively, do you have to guard against that at all?
I think you always have to be guarding against overconfidence in this game, no matter what it is. And we always talk about it, right? You have to be confident. There's no reason, stress never made anybody play better. So you gotta be confident. And I think, you see it in a lot of these games, whether it may have been Air Force a few years ago versus Army, when they were ranked and I think undefeated at the time and Army knocked them off. Or last year, even in our game versus Army, right? They just come off a conference championship. Maybe they were overconfident, right? Those different types of things. And so there are, case studies, there are examples in the past of teams being overconfident. And so, I think what you have to do in this game is just understand, right, that throw the records out. We always say it, but you really do have to. You can't view the records and you can't view what Boise State does against this team or Utah State because it's different defenses, it's different offenses. It's you're not as familiar with them, so it's always different, and you got to treat them with respect, and we always do.
All right, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brett, this might predate you, but the only quarterback matchup I could come up with is Tim Jefferson, Ricky Dobbs around 2009, 2010 would be probably the biggest rival to this one.
Okay. I was thinking maybe Donald Hammond, Malcolm Perry in 19, but I don't think Hammond had really had body work yet. So
yeah, probably not. We'll go back to Wyatt Kopelman.
Blake, you've talked about learning from the moments that weren't applaudable last game, an overthrown third down pass, a couple of other issues of penalties. How do you help ensure the offense channels those lessons into a complete performance against Air Force?
I think it's a little bit of learning from it and a little bit of, forgetting about it. It's weird to say, but you can't let those mistakes define you. You can't, get that stuff in your head that it's gonna, be a theme, right? You got to keep moving forward and moving on, but taking those little lessons you've learned and getting better. So I think you can't let it control you in the fear of having a penalty again or overthrowing a ball. But definitely taking those in practice, right, and learning from them in practice, and then going to the game, being able to play free.
How much an emphasis do you see there being on finishing drives strong at the end of halves this week, especially knowing that Air Force's defense hasn't quite lived up to its usual standards so far this year?
Yeah, I think it's always our emphasis, right, on finishing drives, especially in the red zone, whenever you're on that side of the field, and you can't, in games where possessions sometimes are scarce and few and far in between, you got to be able to capitalize and maximize the points you're going to get per possession.
And as you mentioned, the red zone, this offense has been quite efficient there so far this year. From your perspective as the QB, what's been working so well once you get inside the 20 to threaten the opponent?
I think when you get inside the 20, it's all about mentality, right? That the field shrinks and not as much threat of obviously hitting anybody over the top. And so you got to be able to run the ball downhill. You got to be able to block on the perimeter if you go there. And so it really boils down to those different things. It's mentality and ferocity, I guess, is a good word as well when you get there.
Thank you.
Scott Wyckoff.
Like, how cool is it to have Jackson Gutierrez not only as a fellow quarterback in this offense, but also now as a bruising, not only runner of the ball, but a guy who's opened up big holes for you?
Yeah, I think he's a tough dude, just no matter what it is, and he will go out there and crush some people, especially on blocks or on runs. And I know that if he's running, I'm just gonna get out of the way. If I was on defense, me. But I think just how he's embraced it. He's a smart kid, and I knew that he would succeed at this position and what he's done. I think the coaches knew that he could handle it. Coming from quarterback, knowing that stuff, and he's picked up really fast, and so it's been exciting to see for sure.
It seems like his game is made perfectly for these service academy games. The way he not only runs the ball, but as you mentioned, the way he takes guys out along the line.
Yeah, I think goes back to the mentality thing, right? His mentality for football and just competing in general is he's a winner, right? He wants to win, he wants to compete, and so I'm excited for him to see his first action in these games.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sam Nolan.
Like if the Air Force Navy matchup could move around similar to the venues with Army Navy, where would be one place you'd like to play?
Um, I think obviously you point out, obviously out there to Mile High, in Denver, the stadium for the Broncos, and then if you came over here, if you wanted to switch it up, I don't know. There's always the good ones over here, Philadelphia and those sort of things. But if that's more reserved for Army Navy, I'm not even sure. Maybe like Carolina or something. I don't know. Something random.
Uh, you and we're Zoom with both you and then Landon tomorrow. You guys so synonymous when we talk about the leaders of this program. How is your camaraderie really taken off in your 4 years here at Annapolis?
I think it's one of the places where the camaraderie really just grows the entire time. Like because you're forced together in so many different areas, on the field and off the field. You just grow closer together with maybe people that you wouldn't at any other school. And so for us, right, just him being a Napster, I was a direct. There's no two positions on a football team that probably spend less time together than the quarterbacks and defensive line, to be completely honest. And so just the bond we've been able to form really outside of football has been bigger than even what we can have within the team a lot of times um, because we don't spend much time together. He's on the defensive field doing his stuff. And then, we work more with the linebackers and DBs and the back seven in that sense. And so it's been more about us, just getting to know each other off the field that sort of helped all that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because of that, how key do you think it is that you two are very similar in the way that you lead so that you don't necessarily have to say anything to him and vice versa, but it's clear that this is a player-led team?
Absolutely. I think it just starts with um, the character that you sort of get trained here as a midshipman, and just getting to know each other right from that sense and spend a lot of time together is, I know what he's thinking, he probably knows what I'm thinking, and so maybe when a standard slip in or some plebes just need to be taught something, right? I know we're both on the same page and there's no miscommunications on how something should be handled, and so I think it starts really in Bancroft and how we've learned and grown and sort of seen all these experiences together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Navy Air Force game has been played in other locations, including Old Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, Soldier Field in Chicago, RFK in DC, and FedEx Field in DC, which is now Northwest Stadium. Wags.
And that's where Michael Kelly saw his first football game, was Air Force Navy at RFK.
You read my game notes. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and Charlotte wants to bid for Army Navy, so maybe if they can't get that, they can get Air Force Navy. All right, Blake, by chance, did you see any of the highlights from the Air Force Hawaii game?
I've not yet, no.
Okay, so you have not seen the Air Force quarterback, Zarka, Liam?
No, I haven't seen much film. I see some of the stat lines and stuff at the end of games, but yeah.
Okay. In terms of last season, you all played so well offensively, and that had not been the case for the 3 previous games against Air Force, both at home and away. The offense had been subpar. And I think you were around for one of those here in Annapolis. Can you talk about the difference last year, and can you do it again?
I think the difference last year really was just, I think the excitement, the energy, and just the willingness to go in and want to, sort of shake things up and how they've been the past few years, right? Hadn't done well offensively versus them the past few years. And obviously my sophomore year was injured for that game, but was still on the sidelines to watch it. It was just, I think you look back and the offense had always been the thing sort of holding this team back versus Air Force and in these CIC games. And I think we wanted to stop being the thing that was holding us back, and we wanted to be the difference maker in these games. And I think we were able to do that last year. And again, you can't be the same team as last year. If we put the same product on the field that we put last year, to a T, that's probably what Air Force wants us to do, right? So we got to be able to adapt and evolve and execute better, block better, run around people better than we did last year. And hopefully we can do that.
2-part question. How do you eliminate the pre-snap penalties that anger Coach Newberry and Coach Cronick so much? And secondly, I saw Hoke Smith in particular gesturing to the officials that the defensive linemen were doing some things that to try to draw Navy offsides or to draw a false start, and that's illegal and supposed to be a point of emphasis this season. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I think the first one, it just starts with guys knowing the play, making sure they're focused and, not on edge, and just understand the play call, right, of what we're trying to do and those different things and not being too antsy. And then as well as understanding like our own defense and how they shift and move, and not letting that affect us, which it hasn't in most games, but sometimes things are just weird. And we did have a different group of offensive line playing, so that could have contributed to some things, just different communication things going on out there, but getting it fixed for sure this week.
Anyone have anything else for Blake?
I had one more. Is that all right?
Go ahead.
Well, you were right behind him, so I was curious your thoughts on how Cam Nichols played in his season debut.
I thought Cam played well, just being able to get back from injury and, just be able to sort of fit seamlessly back into the offense while, we've been installing new things and sort of moving forward from the point where he got injured. And so for him to be able to pick things up right where we left off, I think was very impressive, and glad to have him back.
Anything else for Blake? All right, we'll be back at 2:30 with Coach Cronick. Thanks a lot, Blake.
See you guys. Thank you.